Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Midday Live. I am Bright Nana Amfo. Thanks so much for your time. Top on the bulletin this afternoon, some groups still demand the dismissal of Ghana's High Commissioner to South Africa, George A.C. Boateng, despite his apology and retraction of his discriminatory comment. We'll speak with one of such groups. Calls for passage of the Right to Information Bill intensify as Ghana joins the rest of the world to mark International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists. And on the international front, controversial ban on open cattle grazing has come into force in southeast Nigeria's state of Benue. And of course, all these plus business and sports making up the bulletin in the next 1 hour. Thanks so much for your time. Our first story, Ghana's High Commissioner to South Africa, George A.C. Boateng, has issued an unqualified apology and retracted comments in which he pledged to prioritize NPP members in his dealings. The apology and retraction was contained in a letter signed by the diplomat and dated November 1, 2017. George A.C. Boateng in the statement noted that he has realized that his statement was unfortunate and at variance with the letter and spirit of the Ghanaian Constitution and the dignified office of High Commissioner that he occupies. The High Commissioner went on to say he is aware that as a representative of Ghana to South Africa, he has a responsibility to protect the interest of all Ghanaians within his jurisdiction and to grant them equal access to opportunities that are presented irrespective of their political affiliation. And of course, it keeps attracting a lot more interest because Occupy Ghana has also been out there talking about the same issue, asking that the man apologize. And we're told that a petition also from another group has been sent to the office of the president for the removal of George A.C. Boateng. We're told that the petition by Dynamic Youth Movement of Ghana, DYMOG, called on the president to invoke his constitutional powers to relieve Mr. George A.C. Boateng of his post with immediate effect. The statement also demanded the removal of the diplomat within 5 working days. It expressed confidence the removal of Mr. A.C. Boateng will whittle down the growing public perception of Ghanaians on the insensitivity of government to issues of social cohesion, marginalization, and political vigilantism. And that issue attracting a lot of commentary there. A lot more civil society groups asking for the head of the man who is Ghana's representative to the Republic of South Africa. My guest in the studio is the Director of Research, a Dynamic Youth Movement of Ghana, DYMOG, Nditi Wanta. Good afternoon and grateful for your time. So, 5 working days, the president should relieve the man of his post. Is that what you're asking for?
Yes, exactly what we're asking for. You see, Mr. Bright, the challenge of the statement or the commentary that was run by His Excellency A.C. Boateng is clearly an affront to our democracy as a country. You see, South Africa recently, we know the happenings in South Africa. Now, the High Commission of Ghana in South Africa is supposed to be the place where people will seek refuge. And if all citizens of Ghana cannot be rest assured that when something happens to them, a walk to the High Commission of South Africa, of Ghana in South Africa, then it means that we have a very big problem. If you notice, you realize that Ghana's contribution to the diplomatic community is very high. Look, we've had several diplomats that Ghana has produced, including Busmuru Kofi Annan. And if these individuals, there is a standard that Ghana has lived up to all these decades of our democracy. And so it beats my imagination how our excellency that has been sent there to protect the interest and image of this country has gone that low.
The NPP communicators, some are suggesting that he's apologized and so begging Ghanaians to forgive him and allow him to continue his work. Diamok won't take that?
No, yes, it is good that he apologizes. His apology is to Ghanaians for what he has done, but for people to learn. You see, in this country, what we do is that at all times, people do things wrong, and then they come to apologize, and we allow them to stay. You see, we have a president that we believe in so much, who told us, the youth of this country, that, look, believe in me, and that as you believe in me, be citizens and not spectators. And this singular action of His Excellency A.C. Boateng suggests that people should become spectators, because it's not everybody who is an NPP member. So there are people who are non-partisan. There are those who belong to the NDC, CP, and the rest of the parties. And so if we all need to become citizens of this country, then such statements, anybody who makes such statement should be shown the exit door.
It is a mandate of the president. He appointed Mr. A.C. Boateng, and so he has the right to say that I am taking him off from his position. If after 5 days he does not, what next?
You see, Mr. Bright, we are very confident that, look, we have read, even though some of us grow up to meet what the achievements of His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo in terms of his diplomatic engagement when he was foreign minister, we are very much assured that this is a president who has served in that office, who has lived up to the standards. And so he is not somebody who doesn't know what is expected of that person and the kind of standards that he needs to live up to. And so we know that, knowing very well how much the president strives to ensure that the image of this country, you see, the diplomatic community has its own image and language. And so when somebody cannot live up to that image and language of the industry, then it is better that he is brought home.
Finally, you said that his dismissal will bring social cohesion and marginalization and also stop vigilantism. How is that? You see, so you realize that what is happening is that a group of people take themselves to be NPP members, and they feel that since the government is in office, they have the right to demand for whatsoever that is theirs. So if you have someone who believes in that ideology, as His Excellency A.C. Boateng, then it means that any citizen of Ghana who feels that he is NPP can walk up to his office and demand. And if that his demand is not met, then it means that he can lock up an office and go away. Because he feels that, look, you believe in what you said that you would do. And so for that matter, we need to live up to expectation and ensure that when he's out, then he sends a signal to even those who are in Ghana, who are locking offices, who are misbehaving here and there, that, look, you can't continue to do that because the president himself does not condone and connive with such acts. Nditi, I'm grateful for your time with us. Nditi Wanda is the Director of Research at the Dynamic Youth Movement of Ghana, Diamok there, who have petitioned the presidency for the removal of Ghana's High Commissioner to South Africa, His Excellency George A.C. Boateng. There is more on 3news.com on that issue, so you can update yourself. But let's move on. Have you ever wondered what will happen to your personal detailed information when put out on the country's new digital applications, such as the National Addressing System? The new wave of digitization in Ghana, though commendable, is leaving many with fears of cyber security threat. Natalie Ford has more.
The Ghana government is taking measures to digitize its operations, from the introduction of the paperless ports to the new digital addressing system. In spite of the strides being taken in the technological landscape, many worry about cybersecurity threats affecting both the nation and its people. The world is going digital. Coding has been described as the new language of the 21st century, but with this new wave of modernization come security threats. The government of Ghana is determined to harness the benefits of digitization by developing a national inclusive digital payments and addressing system. But are we at risk of external cyber threats?
I believe we are. First of all, there are some few things that the government will have to put in place. We have to put some controls in place. We have to think about the administrative and regulate this properly so that the data resides within the country.
The digital addressing system will contain a database of citizens' detailed information. The system seeks to create an avenue for systematic revenue collection and tax monitoring. The database will be managed by IT specialists, but is the capacity of the local specialists sufficient? If we don't put in place the measures that you're stating, what are we likely to see, especially in the case of the addressing system?
That systems can go off, the server can be shut off, and then, of course, a simple malware such as ransomware can lock the entire system. So we need to train people, and especially train experts who understand the cybersecurity.
This is a class on ethical hacking in the cyberspace. Such persons would be engaged on the management and protection of information provided on the system. Chief Executive Officer of SLAM Technologies, Samuel Boateng, hopes the youth would be heavily deployed to the digital center to monitor the database. The participation of women in the ICT field has been relatively low. Sarah is the only female in the ethical hacking class.
Initially, I was much interested in the database and the networking aspects. But when I got in here, my boss made me realize it's nice and it's actually fun for a lady to be able to code. So I'm actually working towards the programming aspect. So I honestly didn't like programming.
In spite of the security threat concerns raised, the process of digitization is expected to have a great impact on the country's respective agencies, with the capacity to sort out the record classification.
In other news, November 2 marks the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists. It is a day set aside by the UN to raise awareness on impunity for journalists or for crimes against journalists and to enforce action against violence towards journalists. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists Global Impunity Index 2017, after a decade since the index was launched, 7 countries out of worst 12 have been listed periodically, with Somalia alone appearing thrice in a row for unresolved murders. The index confirms that impunity thrives in conflict environments and autocratic regimes. Ghana, as a member state of the UN, is entreated to ensure the safety of its media persons in their line of duty. However, there have been violence against journalists in the lead-up to the 2016 Ghana elections and uncharacteristic attacks of journalists and media houses in recent times. The recently adopted International 2030 Framework of the Sustainable Development Goals adds impetus to the challenge of ensuring journalists' safety and ending impunity. This is Midday Live, and in other news, Ivorian Minister for Water and Forest, Alain Richard Donwahi, says polluted water bodies in Ivory Coast have started improving. This he attributed to the sustained fight against illegal mining in Ghana.
The Ivorian government had earlier raised concerns about pollution of their water bodies by galamsey activities which take their sources from the western region of Ghana. The Ivorians stated the country was finding difficulty in treating its water due to the development. In an interview in Accra, Ivorian Minister for Water and Forest, Alain Richard Donwahi, said the situation has improved due to the fight against galamsey or illegal mining in Ghana. He indicated Ivory Coast needs to learn from Ghana in order to fight illegal mining in that country.
We saw the improvement on that matter, and we have to come back here to see how Ghana is fighting against illegal mining, because we have that problem also in Cote d'Ivoire. So we'll come often, and we have to work together, not to complain, but to see what we can do together to ameliorate our condition of environment.
$1.8 billion is missing from the coffers of Cocoa Board and cannot be traced. The amount was reported missing between December 15, 2016 and January 6, 2017. Management has initiated investigations and has called on the minority NDC to explain who and how the withdrawals were made.
The Chief Executive Officer of Cocoa Board, Joseph Boahen Edu, was reacting to the minority NDC press conference held at Bodi in the Western region. According to the CEO, an amount of $1.4 billion was withdrawn from the coffers in December 2016 after the NDC had lost the elections. Again, the remaining $400 billion was withdrawn by January 6, 2017, leaving Cocoa Board with nothing.
It is still surprising how the full drawdown of $400 million, that's 1.69 billion Ghana cedis, was fully expended between 20th December and then 6th of January. This inability to account properly for the loan, the NPP government was saddled with a whopping debt of 19.6 billion after taking over in January 2017.
The Chief Executive Officer was again concerned about the abuse of funds and inflated contracts signed to finance Cocoa Roads. He indicated, upon assumption into office in February 2017, management inherited 3.52 billion cedis debt from Cocoa Roads. Adding, they commenced investigations into the roads and identified that most of them were non-existent.
It's also instructive to note that many of the cocoa roads for which contracts were awarded have been found to be non-existent or excessively over-bloated, as revealed by an interim audit conducted by technical consultant. The first time in the history of Ghana, the NDC had introduced ghost cocoa roads in Ghana.
Again, part of the amount for the cocoa roads were used to purchase vehicles which also cannot be accounted for.
Over 160 vehicles are with the contractors. To indicate the abuse, an 18-kilometer road, for example, was allocated 6 four-wheel drives for inspection by the old administration. I've initiated steps to retrieve the vehicles.
The CEO again alleged monies were withdrawn from the coffers of Cocoa Board to build guest houses for NDC appointees. He said management is still investigating the rot and will soon drag those involved to court.
This is Midday Live. Now, the Queen of Denmark, Her Majesty Margaret II, has acknowledged that although parts of Denmark's past with Ghana was not pretty in terms of the slave trade, it will build a good foundation to promote mutual relationship between the two countries. Speaking to TV3 at the Fredensborg Palace in Denmark, Queen Margaret II said she's looking forward to her visit to Ghana in November. Portia Gabo has the story.
On November 23rd, Queen Margaret II will lead a delegation of 39 Danish companies to Ghana to promote trade and investments.
My first time in Western Africa, which means that it's something entirely new for me. But Denmark and Ghana have had very good relations for a long time, and I know that there is a large group of Danish business people who are looking forward to being there together with me and to see what they can do, and they are excited about the prospects of working in Ghana.
She acknowledged that although Denmark had a dark past with Ghana in terms of slave trade, it will forge a relationship to promote a partnership of trade.
I think even though parts of our past are not so pretty, and that we must distance ourselves from that. On the other hand, it means that Denmark is known in Ghana and Ghana known in Denmark. And that is a very good foundation to build our relationships of today. We know about Christiansborg, and I've just learned that you call part of Accra Danish Accra. And I know also that a book is being published about old Danish houses in Accra, which I'm looking very much forward to seeing, the book, I mean, and the places too. So there is a foundation, something to build on.
With Ghana's status as a middle-income country, Denmark will end aid to the country by 2020 and begin a partnership of trade, which during the Queen's visit would focus on food and agriculture sustainability, the maritime sector, as well as infrastructure and railways.
In other news this afternoon, 1,831 defilement cases were recorded in the central region between January 2014 and October 2017. The Executive Director of Child Rights International, Bright Appiah, who disclosed this at a press conference in Accra, called for the adoption of preventive interventions in addressing child protection issues in the country.
Old girl who was defound in Dadietem in the Asin South district of the central region has ignited a lot of public outrage and renewed calls for swift prosecution and stiffer legislation for child molesters. Executive Director of the Child Rights International, Bright Appiah, noted sensitizing children about the negative effects on defilement and its impact on their social and cognitive development can help reduce such incidents.
Once you provide them with the education, they would say the things that are happening to them, because some of the things that happen to children, they themselves do not see it as offenses against them. So once we are able to expose the knowledge to them, I think that they will stand up for their right.
He called for rehabilitation procedures for the 4-year-old defiled girl in the central region to mitigate the impact of the incidents.
The clinical psychologist to work on that particular child, and then you need the hospital to be able to also give drugs and other things for the child.
The Executive Director called for concerted efforts in addressing child protection issues in the country.
And the Executive Director of Child Rights International is with me here in the studio. Bright Appiah, good afternoon and grateful for your time.
Yeah, good afternoon, Bright.
So 1,000 plus 800, that's a number in the central region alone. That should sound alarming.
Of course, and this is between 2014 and October 2017. You know, so clearly it shows that there are a lot of work that we have to do, and these are reported cases, and the reported cases does not include the rape cases. You know, rape start from 16 and above, so 16 below is what we have recorded. And other factor that also point to the fact that communities are not ready to report cases. So if you are reported, if you have this number reporting and it's so huge, then you can imagine the number of cases that have not been reported.
I see. So first of all, communities not ready to report. Is it for fear of the implications, or some argue that the cost involved in first reporting to a hospital sometimes is stopping communities from reporting these cases?
Yeah, I think that what has to do with the kind of difficulties that they go through in terms of reporting cases to the police and how rapid the response will come to. So sometimes because they don't have the resources to deal with that, they feel that okay, then we should not report it. Let's look for somebody to report it to, and then let's use the alternative system to address it. So basically, that's what the community seeks to do. But I feel that no, once administrative bodies are mandated to do certain specific work, they need to be very flexible and friendly to the people who report these cases, so that at least they will know that they have the confidence that when they report, somebody will listen to them and all that. So for me, those are the things that we have to look at as a nation, so that everybody must be friendly to people who report matters that relates to children, you know. And then the complexity also comes in, especially when you report a case. Our juvenile justice system is in such a way that it's very complex. So officers, police officers do not want to go to that cumbersome nature of the system. So sometimes they also want to resort to other alternative system in dealing with the issue. But once it has to do with a child, and we have defined the way and manner we want to handle issues relating to children, I think that all of us must show commitment, respect to the things that we want to do to deal with some of these issues.
If the central region alone has this figure, as you said from the beginning, and if we look at 1 out of 10, then we certainly have a problem. But where can we put our finger on where the problem is coming from, resulting in the increasing number of cases?
Well, one of the issues is the community reaction when some of these issues happen, and when people want to report cases, you know, and then the community attitude in terms of how they look at children, which of course I would say one of the major things that contributed it has to do with the disregard that we have for children and the disrespect that we show to children. Clearly, people in community feel that they can do anything at all to children, and that will manifest itself in different forms. This is just a session of issues that we're talking about, but there are others where people do not regard children. They feel that whatever they want to do with them, they can do it. So on the base of that, if somebody feels that it is a matter of rituals, they can get children. If it's a matter of satisfying their own conscience, they can use children. If it's a matter of working, they can use children. So it's an attitudinal issue that communities are adopting. But I believe that when people begin to respect the right of children and give them their place, they will stop. But one of the things that can also do this, for me, has to do with the court, because at the end of the day, everything comes back to the former system where the court must decide on the issue in terms of the way forward. So if the court are giving judgment that are not deterrent enough, the court are not publishing some of the judicial precedents that they have to set example for others, everybody feels that they can do it. And there's a case even in Cape Coast now, the person has really damaged this particular girl, and the court has given the person bail. We know that now every offense is bailable, but there are certain circumstances that the court can decide not to grant bail. But if the court has given bail to such a person, then you can imagine how the people in the community would also feel that if they commit the same offense, what the court would do to them. So they will continue. So the courts have a huge role to play. For me, the court has a very huge. If you want to stop this, the court has a very huge role to play in terms of how they turn out with these cases. And once people know that when you commit such offense, it gets to the court, and the court will speed up the process. The court would also give a judgment that will be deterrent enough. I think that people will stop.
Bright, I'm grateful for your time with us this afternoon. Bright Appiah is the Executive Director of Child Rights International, talking to me. 1,000 plus 800 kids alone in the central region between 2014 and 2016. There's more update of this on 3news.com. Stay with us for more. In other stories this afternoon, the Jasikan District Assembly has acquired 2,000 acres of land for an industrial starch factory. The Assembly is also seeking the release of land for the establishment of a ceramic factory and ginger processing plants ahead of a government's one factory, one district policy.
Buem is one of the largest food baskets in Ghana, with vast arable land fertile for the cultivation of several crops. The area was once the leading cocoa producer in the Volta region. However, chieftaincy disputes and lack of industrialization has taken a heavy toll on agricultural productivity.
Though some of these issues have been partly addressed, a lot more still remain unattended, and therefore requires the effort of all of you in seeking for solutions to all these problems.
The 13th Coalition Congress was on the theme, Agro-Industry, a key to development in Buem.
The first thing that we want to look at is the starch factory. The Western Buem chief have released 20,000 acres of land for this project.
Member of Parliament for Buem, Daniel Kwesi Ashiama, urged the chiefs to support initiatives to help improve the fortunes of the area.
We have to turn what we have to get what we don't have. And in establishment of any industry, it is about the supply of raw materials to this factory that can sustain this factory.
In a speech read on behalf of the chiefs of the area by the assemblyman for Old Baika, Jabril Lamte Peter, the traditional authority called for the Oti region to be based on the traditional Buem Krachi district.
The chiefs and people of the northern part of the Volta region, specifically the area that used to be called the Buem Krachi district, have presented a petition to the President of the Republic for the creation of a new region.
The district chief executive Lawrence Kwame Azeli gave an assurance of plans to improve health and education in the district.
Deckhand, operating the ferry on the Makango-Yeji portion of the Volta Lake, have requested for a new engine to be fitted to the new vessel. The operators lament the new one or the newer worry the current state of diesel consumption by the new engine has led to an increase in the cost of doing business. The Volta Transport Service operates one of its vessels and water buses on the Makango River. Residents, most of whom are farmers and traders, prefer water transport to road due to its lower fares and shorter traveling time. The old Volta Queen ferry was grounded after it almost sank last year. Operators lament the new engine procured consumes too much fuel, which is adversely affecting revenue generation. Operators generate a little over 2,000 cedis on a very good day, and 1,000 cedis on a normal day is inadequate to buy fuel. Operators want a more economical engine fitted on the new vessel to reduce the consumption of diesel. They are also calling for the dredging of the landing site to make it easier to load vehicles. Sources close to TV3 indicate the dredging has been awarded on contract, but the contractor is yet to move to the site. In other news, the Ghana Railway Authority, with support from the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, has lifted the train which derailed last week back onto the track. Salama Minya was at the location and has filed the following report.
On Monday, October 23, an Accra-bound Tema train derailed at Tesano, about 1 kilometer from the Achimota train station. The last of the 6-carriage train disengaged. The Railway Authority, with support from the Port and Harbours Authority, have lifted the derailed train back onto the tracks 9 days after the derailment. It took this 200-tonnage crane, owned by the Ghana Port and Harbours Authority, 2 hours to lift the carriage onto the tracks. The crane required a firm support to enable it to lift the 48-ton coach. But why would it take the railways 9 days to lift this carriage?
The crane is about 200-ton crane and it's heavier. And the added weight even gives it much more weight. So we tried lifting it up somewhere Saturday, but we realized we still need to do some more impact. Put more laterite and more of the boulders, more of the rocks. That's what we have done.
They are trying to couple it together with the main train, which will be hauling it all the way to Tema, where engineers will take a careful look at it to ensure that whatever that damage, if it is repairable, they are going to repair it so that we can see it back on the rail.
More than 6,000 commuters who rely on rail transport have had to resort to road transport owing to the derailment.
This is Midday Live. We're stepping on the brakes. When we come back, there is business. Time now for business, and the Tema Port Director of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, Edward Osei, has decried the practice of some transit drivers loading from the port without approved transport loading permits. He complained unregistered individuals and other splinter groups doing business at the port were undermining operations.
About 3,000 trucks plied the trade at the port. Cargo is transported to the landlocked countries such as Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger. Trucks doing business at the port has to register through a recognized transport union operating at the port. However, on many occasions, transit goods have reportedly been diverted by agents. Owing to this, the director of the Tema Port, Edward Osei, is asking hauliers to follow due process.
The rule is once they've been cleared from here, nobody is to check them again. All customs at Paga is supposed to do is to look in the system just to make sure that, the papers they are carrying tallied.
As part of efforts to facilitate trade and improve reforms, the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoudou Baumia, directed that all customs barriers should be removed. Drivers have attested to this, but further lamented that the police checks have rather increased and that will affect their work.
If not in the northern region, I don't know that MTU works in the night. At times in the night you get there and they are there. Tamale entry, Tamale outing at the airport junction. It's very bad and they are disturbing the drivers.
In other business news, the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the Forestry Commission has hinted the establishment of a factory to add value to rosewood. This, he said, will be part of a policy that will help maximize revenue from the wood.
The Ministry of Land and Natural Resources in 2014 placed a ban on the harvest, transportation, export, sale and processing of the wood as part of efforts to bring sanity in the forestry sector. In August this year, Lands and Natural Resource Ministry approved for the grant of permit to 25 companies to salvage rosewood from Bono Ahafo, Northern, Upper East and Upper West regions. These companies are to comply with 17 guidelines and regulations, including guidelines on evacuation of lying logs, harvesting, processing and transportation of rosewood. Deputy CEO for the Forestry Commission, John Alote, says what is happening is the clearing of already harvested rosewood.
We don't want them to go waste, so some few who have been allowed to do what we call salvage, go around, pick them, but there are modalities being monitored by the Forestry Commission and Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources to make sure that no new rosewood is cut, but it's only those that are lying down that are picked, and then they are monitored through their issuance of conveyances and then the documents that convey them, that allow them to convey them to the port.
He hinted of drafting a policy which will eventually lead to setting up a factory to add value to rosewood.
That's what we are doing. We're trying to get factories to process rosewood to add value to it. And already there is, I know about 3 companies that are going into processing rosewood to the into real furniture, as the Chinese will do when they take the rosewood from here. So that's why we want to halt the cutting of new trees so that we would be able to produce it ourselves into finished product rather than selling the raw material.
Rosewood is prized as a decorative tree and used to make antique furniture, chopsticks and showpieces. Its oil is used in perfumes, deodorant, essential oil, antiseptic, insecticide and aphrodisiac. It is also used in making guitars, vehicle interior decoration, wall and floor paneling. Finished products from rosewood are very expensive and well patronized in Asia.
And that's it for business. Up next is sports.
Right, so you're welcome to the sports segment here on Midday Live. My name is Yao Ofusulabi. Now, every Kwesi Appiah squad these days seems to throw up various subjects for discussion. If it is not providing signals about the direction of the team, then it is provoking often passionate debates about why one play or the other was dropped. Appiah's latest Black Star squad for the final 2018 World Cup qualifier against Egypt on Thursday has inevitably provided compelling talking points once again. My colleague Nana Kweku Anderson has been looking at them. The submission of the Ayew brothers, Andre and Jordan, remains a powerful talking point too. Ex-Ghana international Sam Johnson says the reaction speaks more of a fan base not sure about what they want rather than the coach settling scores, as some have suggested.
Before he's calling them, Ghanaians are insulting, especially Jordan. They are insulting him every day and night. He's still playing good football in Europe. We all see what he's doing in Europe. So now if he's playing the same good football and he's not calling him, why are the people talking about it? So we should stop this accusation every day in and day out.
One of Appiah's key promises as well was that he will promote home-based players, but his present squad has just one, a goalkeeper who plays his club football in Ghana. Johnson thinks they are just not good enough.
We have the quality and the very good, local players, potentials, but they are not there. If you take 20, maybe one can succeed.
Mubarak Wakaso is back, but Jonathan Mensah is gone and the Ayew brothers are still absent. We used to mock Avram Grant's template squad, where we knew who would be in the squad without blinking. But beyond what this says about Appiah's preference for specific players, what does this say about long-term plans for the Black Stars? Sports journalist Sadiq Adams thinks it sends a powerful message to the group.
The point is that Kwesi Appiah is in the process of building a team, a strong one, of course, for the African Cup of Nations in 2019. And we have barely a year to go for that tournament. And apart from that, he needs to put the team in place. So it wouldn't be prudent for him to call players who wouldn't fit into the squad going forward. You know, it's a team building process. He needs to put players who are ready and players who can stand the test of time going into AFCON 2019.
Well, on to our next story now. CAF has released a 30-man shortlist of nominees for the African Player of the Year award. Only 2 Ghanaians, Thomas Partey and Christian Atsu of Newcastle United, made the list. There are 13 West African players in the shortlist, including Chelsea's Victor Moses, Top Gun's Sadio Mane, Manchester United's Eric Bailly, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang are all on the shortlist. Last year's winner of the award, Riyad Mahrez, could not find a place among the nominees this year after he endured an undulating season with Leicester City and Algeria. Junior Kabananga, Jean-Michel Seri and Guinea's Naby Keita have all been included for their display for club and for country. The winner will be decided by votes from head coaches, technical directors of the national associations affiliated to CAF, members of CAF and a technical development committee and a panel of media experts. The awards gala will be held on Thursday, January 4, 2018 in Accra. Well, still on the nominees for the 2017 African Player of the Year, TV3 sports editor Michael Otieje analyzes the 13 names put out by CAF and the chances of Ghana's duo Thomas Partey and Christian Atsu.
I reckon that the battle to become African Player of the Year will be fought between 3 players. It will be either Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, remarkable season with Dortmund in Germany. He had a great time, ended the season as top scorer. His main competition is likely to come from a man who played a major role in getting Egypt to their first World Cup since 1990. That is Mo Salah. Salah as well has started his year with Liverpool in great fashion, but the fact that he did so well in Egypt and scored crucial goals against Uganda, Ghana, and there's Sadio Mane, perhaps the best African in the English Premier League at the moment. He's had a very, very good time. He's played some great football. He's helped Senegal when he's had to. I reckon those 3 could become the key men who would battle for that. Now, apart from that, there are 2 Ghanaians in that 30-man list, Christian Atsu and Thomas Partey. Partey has come into his own incredibly well. Atsu is finally a regular with Newcastle. Those credentials are clearly not enough. It will be a surprise if they actually make it into the final 5. Those names may just be there to garnish it. The real competition could be between Aubameyang, Mo Salah, as well as Sadio Mane.
Also, that Sergio Aguero's goal was one of the goals that led Man City to the next stage of the UEFA Champions League. Liverpool are also in contention for qualification to the next stage. It will be the first time they will qualify to the knockout stages since the 2008-2009 season. Liverpool have indeed progressed this season significantly. Besiktas also drawing 1-1 with AS Monaco, and FC Porto beating Rasenballsport Leipzig by 3-1 there. Leipzig posed a very big threat on Bayern Munich in the title challenges, but they've not been able to perform so well in the UEFA Champions League. But that's how we end the sports news here. My name is Yao Ovusula. We will take entertainment news after this.
And perhaps a dream come true. Shatta Wale has appealed to President Akufo-Addo to appoint him and fellow dancehall artist Stonebwoy as official ambassadors for music industry. He believes the two epitomize perseverance and they are in a position to lead or inspire the youth of Ghana.
Thank you very much. So you accepted my invitation? It's great. It's good of you to come. It's good of you to come. One more day. We're all through the campaign. You're right there in our face. Yeah. Because Bawumia is coming to speak.
I loved it.
So you were present.
Yeah.
You were very present. It's good. Yeah. I'm happy, and it's good of you. Yeah. You're doing a lot of work, and it's solid. It's solid. Yeah. We congratulate you already.
So the conversation was never going to be complete without the mention of the famous Land Cruiser. You know, Shatta Wale requested that the president gives him a Land Cruiser as a birthday present. But Nana said he didn't have a Land Cruiser for Shatta Wale, but rather he had a beautiful present for him.
I don't have a Land Cruiser. I do not have a Land Cruiser. I don't have a Land Cruiser. But I have a small memento from the presidency.
Wow.
Yeah, which I think.
There you go, bless you. God bless you. God bless you. Wow. Thank you very much, Daddy. God bless you.
Also, the two had a very wonderful day. Eventually, they met. But before Shatta Wale stepped out of the Flagstaff house, he had one more request on his mind. Guess what he wanted the president to do for the industry this time round?
Also, I have this one request I want to make.
Please do so.
I think our industry really needs, your support a lot. I feel you need to support, the hard-working ones in the industry, especially me. I've spoken to Bola about Stonebwoy, that we need just 2 ambassadors for Ghana music, not only for, performance sake, but to teach the youth what music entails, because most of them see it like fun, and we want them to realize it as business.
Good of you to have come.
Thank you.
Now we've met each other, we keep in touch.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you. What's up, Pastor? Don't worry. Thank you. God bless you. God bless you so much. Thank you very much, Daddy. God bless you too.
All right. Hey, take care.
Exciting moment for Shatta Wale and his Shatta movement. Now, let's touch some international news. The ban on open cattle grazing comes into force in southeast Nigerian Benue State.
A controversial ban on open cattle grazing has come into force in southeast Nigeria's Benue State. It follows violent clashes between cattle herders and local farmers last year over rights to grassland. Hundreds of people were killed in the violence and whole communities destroyed. The state government says the new law will affect everyone and all livestock must be kept on ranches. Fulani herdsmen say they are being targeted and have described the law as a recipe for anarchy. But the Benue government says its aim is to restore peace. Anyone who breaks the new law could be jailed for up to 5 years. Cattle herders have since taken their animals southwards to seek greener pastures, increasing tensions over control of land.
And that's it on the international front, wrapping up the bulletin for this afternoon. There's more news on 3news.com. My name is Bright Nananfo. Have a good afternoon, but stay right here on TV3.